Dr. Viktor Frankl, the Jewish Austrian neurologist and psychiatrist, survived 4 concentration camps in his life. 4. He credits those profound experiences with profoundly deepening his understanding of human beings and human nature. Later on in reflection, he made this statement. He said, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but rather by lack of meaning and purpose." Astounding. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but rather by the lack of meaning and purpose. Here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. We as human beings are creatures that are designed to search for meaning, to see the bigger picture, to understand what this is all about. This is what separates us from the rest of the species on this planet. We are searching for meaning and we are searching for purpose. We want to see where we're headed, what the destiny is, where the destination is, and how we fit into that picture. Meaning and purpose, 2 significant principles for leadership to keep in mind. Hi, I'm Dr. Greg Nelson, and in video number 2, we are talking about the leadership principle of communicating your purpose with clarity and checking your course regularly. So let's look at that. Why is this so important? Gallup does the largest workplace study in the world regularly, and their latest results revolve around asking the employees how they feel about their company and their company's leadership. So here's some of the results. Only 22% of the employees strongly agree with the statement, "Our leadership has a clear direction for the organization." 22%. Only 15% strongly agree with the statement that our leadership makes us enthusiastic about the future. My goodness. And finally, only 13% of those that were surveyed strongly agree with the statement, "Our leadership communicates effectively with the rest of the organization." Gallup then goes on with the results of their survey to make this conclusion. Here's why this is so important. People are making decisions about whether or not to stay in their organizations or in their companies based upon whether or not they are feeling compelled by and inspired by the communication of their company's vision via the leaders of the company, the organization. This is an issue, as it turns out then, about employee retention. Employees need to know where they're headed and how what they are doing every day, day in and day out, contributes to where they're headed. That's the meaning piece. And where they're headed is the purpose piece. So let's talk about that. There's an ancient saying, and you perhaps have heard it, that goes like this: "Where there is no vision, the people perish." I really like the other translation of this saying. It says, "Where there is no guidance or vision, people run wild, scattering all over the place with no direction." So you get the point. Vision is what empowers us to move forward, to get involved, to find loyalty to the mission, and to empower our day-to-day activities with the energy it takes to move things forward. That's the power of purpose and vision. Without it, we simply are not as engaged or satisfied. So as leaders, here's the deal. We are the champions and stewards of our vision, the primary communicators of the purpose of our organizations. What we say about it or don't say truly matters. It has a profound impact on the energy level, satisfaction level of the employees in our organizations. So my question number 1 is, how often do you communicate the purpose and North Star of your organization? And how clearly are you communicating that purpose with everyone in your organization? I know one CEO who does a lot of walking the halls in his building. And he's doing that for multiple reasons. One is to get to know the employees better, to have more of a personal relationship with these thousands of employees under his leadership. But the other is to ask strategic questions. And one of the questions he often asks as he goes up and down the hall is, how clear is the purpose of this organization to you? Does it make sense? And he listens to their response and then says, if there's lack of clarity, what could we say that would be clear to you and be more compelling and inspiring to you? So this CEO, this leader is making connection with the employees and asking these strategic questions in order to help shape his communication of the purpose to the whole organization. That's powerful leadership. He's willing to clarify more clearly, to be redundant, his communication of the purpose based upon him hearing from people saying, you know what, I don't get it. And the second thing he asks, though, is, do you see your relationship of your role, day-to-day role, with the fulfilling of this purpose? And that gives him gold information, that strategic question. So he's able to shift that. He's able to communicate in a way that every person, no matter what their role is, says, yes, here is what I am contributing to the mission and purpose of this organization. Very successful leadership. Part 1, communicate your purpose with great clarity. And part 2 then is to regularly evaluate your alignment, our alignment with that destiny, that destination. It's checking the course regularly. This takes intentional strategic stops, doesn't it? If you've been a leader for a while, you know that this is true. Evaluation of your course and how well you're doing to get to that destination doesn't just drop out of the sky. It is processed strategically and clearly and regularly, because we cannot control all the external conditions. We can do something about the internal conditions. That's the culture of our organization. I have another video talking about that significant dynamic. But sometimes the external conditions we cannot control. And this is where I really like the sailing metaphor. One thing we know as sailors, and I've been sailing since I was a kid, so I'm very passionate about sailing. One thing we know as sailors is we cannot create the wind. We can blow as hard as we want into the sails and it won't do a thing. We can't control the direction of the wind. The only thing we can do as sailors is to take the wind in whatever direction it's coming from and leverage that wind in such a strategic way that it propels us ultimately to get to our destination. And we do that by means of a strategy called tacking. The wind is coming towards us. Our destination is straight upwind. We cannot go straight to the destination if the wind is coming right at us. We have to tack. So we make these zigzags back and forth. And every time you make a zigzag, you're going away from the destination. And the temptation would be to say, you know what, we're not headed towards the destination. And yet as a sailor, you know that is actually the most strategic tack to take, so that you can get a little bit farther up the road, make another up the current, and make another tack, and ultimately get to your destination. Tacking is what I would call strategic plasticity. It is making strategic choices to be as flexible and dynamic as the conditions demand. Strategic plasticity. I read a business author who called it corporate plasticity. It's being willing to be flexible and dynamic based upon the conditions that you're facing. It's been interesting to watch how some companies have done during the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, where whatever was their ultimate purpose had to shift in some respects because they realized that there was a disruption happening, the virus that was calling them actually to shift, to be flexible, and do a whole new business. Without forgetting their ultimate purpose, they're saying, during this time, let's make some more masks. During this time, let's make some more PPEs. With this time, let's make more swabs. So they shifted. The virus was a disruptor, and they were willing to be dynamic and flexible. That's what we have to do as leaders. We have to be flexible. So if I were to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being completely flexible, 1 being completely rigid, what number would you give yourself? How would you rate yourself on the flexibility scale or the rigidity scale? The most successful leaders are the ones that rate themselves on the higher level of flexibility, because they're willing, like sailors are, to take where the wind is coming from and be fluid and dynamic and flexible, to shift strategically in order to continue to make direction towards the ultimate purpose and destination. Strategic plasticity. We're living in a world of disruption. It's global disruption. If there's ever a time when we need to do both of these principles as leaders, it's now. We must communicate more clearly the purpose and vision of our organizations, and do it in such a way that every person that works in our sphere understands clearly how their role contributes to that vision and that purpose. That increases the employee energy and employee satisfaction and engagement and loyalty to the company. And then secondly, we need to be flexible to adjust our course based upon whatever disruptors there are. The big disruptor for the sailor is the wind and the current. But sailors have learned that the only way to get to their destination is to be dynamic, fluid, and flexible. I invite you to evaluate yourself on that communication with clarity of the purpose scale and the rigidity, flexibility scale. And then see what changes you need to make. Talk to your people. Find out how you're coming across and how they're feeling, both about the purpose as well as about the strategies to get there. Who knows? Maybe even one of those workers would have an entirely new strategic strategy or tact to take. That would be just the right tact that ultimately would lead to the destination. Hi, I'm Dr. Greg Nelson. Thank you for listening and watching, and I'll see you next time.